Howdy everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower. This is Lookback, where I take a look at videos that I reviewed, or games that I reviewed a year, 5 years, and 10 years ago, and tell you what I think about them now, if I think about them at all. So we'll start with a year ago. I took a look, first impressions look, at Food Chain Magnate. A very, very popular game. Lots of people love it. This was my first and likely last impressions. Now, it was very clear in the impressions that it was my first playthrough and that I got just shellacked. Like, my score was beat by a factor of 10, as in like 400 to 40 type score. And I just didn't enjoy this one at all. It really snowballed out of control. Some people like that sort of thing, but a game where you know you've lost in turn 2 out of a 2 to 3 hour game just wasn't very enjoyable to me. Fire, this is a 1 or 2 player game. It's pretty much a solitaire game from Friedman Freeze, but it's just so mathy, and the math is so evident, as in I'm just doing a bunch of math problems. I didn't find myself enjoying it. 20-second showdown is a party game where you just do silly things, and there's this timer that's going back and forth between the teams. If you want to do just silly stuff back and forth, this one works. 9 tiles panic. You have some tiles, everyone has the same ones, and you're trying to build some tiles as quickly as you can following rules. I like this style of game a lot. I'd probably like it more if it wasn't so quickly timed. Coralia, this one here from R&R Games is a really pretty game. I mean, it's underwater sea theme. There's some interesting ideas. It's fun. But I wonder if this will drop to a 6 when I come back in 5 years and look at it. Because even now when I looked at it, I thought, I wonder when the next time I'll play it will be. Terraforming Mars Turmoil. This is the last expansion to come out for Terraforming Mars, which added a political side to things, which sounds exciting, and I like it. But you'll notice that Terraforming Mars, I pretty much rated a 10. And this is a 7. Again, this is another one I wonder. I haven't played this one since the review, although I played Terraforming Mars quite a few times, and I played with the different expansions. So this is a good expansion to add some cool things, but I don't know how often I'll play with it. Babylonia. This is the last good Knizia game that I played, I think, really good. In fact, it would be higher than a 7.5, but the tile trace didn't hold the things right. Now, I fixed that in my copy, but that was a small problem. But other than that, this is very abstract, but a very good game. Lux Afterna, this is a solo game that I played, which I found to be very enjoyable. Just trying to figure out how to keep your spaceship from crashing by playing cards. I thought this was a pretty neat game, and I liked the art direction. The Menace Among Us, this is one of those werewolf-style games, but it's more involved than that. Everyone's on a spaceship. You're trying to figure out who's trying to blow the ship up to some degree. They're the Menace. I really like this one. It's has more of a party feel to it than most social deduction games. Alubari, A Nice Cup of Tea. I've heard this is very similar to Snowdonia. I really like this one, building railroad tracks across and taking different actions. Very, very straightforward, and I enjoyed it. Agizia, Shifting Sands. This is the second edition of Agizia, a beautiful edition for sure. Has one of my favorite mechanisms where you can go as far as you want to take an action, but once you do that, you can't go back. Simple actions, building pyramids, just came together very nicely. Wavelength, fantastic party game. This is one we'll be talking about from years to come, where you have 2 different options and you were trying to pick somewhere in between those by giving a clue. It's very, it just makes sense. It's easy to intuit what's going on in the game. Really good one. U-Boot, the board game. This is another first impressions, and this is another one that I probably won't play again. And you say, but you gave it such a high rating. It was a great experience. But it requires pretty much 4 players. It requires hours to play and someone who really knows the game well. It's a very big hybrid of video and board game. A lot of cool things. And I'm like, wow, that was a really fun experience. But to play it again, who knows when that will happen. Maracaibo. This one keeps going up for me. This is an Alexander Pfister game. I think it's probably my favorite of all the Alexander Pfister games. All you're doing is moving a ship around in a circle and doing various actions to get points, but it just comes really well to me. There's just the way the cards work, I just really enjoy it. And then a year ago, I reviewed The Crew, an amazing cooperative trick-taking game that has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. All right, 5 years ago, Not a lot of good games from 5 years ago, but there's a lot of them. Here we go. Black Sheep and White Sheep, a little boring abstract strategy game with the rules were kind of hairy to understand. Monsters Tower, which looked cool, this big tower, but you're sticking these monsters in and out of this tower all the time, and your fingers barely fit in. That kind of ruined the whole game for me. The Undercity Iron Kingdoms adventure game. This you would think, I mean, it has cool miniatures, looks like a great game, and it's just one of those games where the deterministic combat, it feels like this is before, 5 years ago, this is before the rush of many cooperative, one verse, everyone working together to stop bad guys. This one here didn't stand out then, now just gone. Dice Brewing. This is a beer-style dice game from Board and Dice Games. This is before they got more and more popular. And, yeah, it just wasn't very good. Although Board and Dice has really turned around and made great things after this. Flock. Oh, this one saddens me. That's an amazing cover. I love this one. It even sounds cool. Pick different actions and you grow your flock of birds. But it felt like very confined and not a lot of cool actions you could take. Tricarion Legends of Illusions, and here I worry about this one because this is obviously a game that a lot of people really enjoy, and I like some of their other games, including Anachrony, but this one just did not do it for me. My original review, I did play a rule wrong. I went back and replayed it with that rule. The slice but better just didn't work for me. Mostly I think because I think the biggest thing for me is their games tend to be overly complex, which is, a thing, but this one, the theme is so cool, and I didn't feel the theme at all in this game. Epic. This one I've dropped. Epic is a game where you just play big smashing cards on other people and see what happens. It's like Magic the Gathering if your whole deck was gigantic cards. And I just played it recently and just didn't really enjoy it much. Race in the North Pole. Okay, but forgettable game with a spinning board as you're racing across it. Caro, an abstract strategy game. Looks kind of cool, but again, a little bit forgettable. Shelf Alfredo. This one's good for kids. You're putting food in pots. The pots are moving around. You got to remember what's in each pot. If you like memory games, you'll like it. Aya. This is a really weird game. It would probably get a higher rating if it wasn't so weird. It's a cooperative domino game. But not dominoes and you place them. It's like stacking dominoes. At the end of the game, you need to knock them all over and it needs to work. That's a weird idea and it causes some problems, which is why it's not rated higher. But it's I like the idea. Wonky, a stacking game, but all the blocks are weird shapes. Best treehouse ever. I really like this one. In theory, the artwork's great. There's unfortunately 2 treehouse games that came out around the same time, but this one works really well. You're just trying to build your tree out. There's not a lot of tough decisions in it, but I thought it was a good game. Trexo, another domino game where you have an X and an O on 2 different sides of the dominoes, and you're just placing them out to get 5 in a row. Really simple. But sometimes that's the kind of game I want to play. Bottom of the 9th. All right, now we're to my finally games that we gave approval to. Bottom of the 9th is just about the bottom of the 9th of a baseball game. Tense back and forth game between the pitcher and the batter. World of Yoho. This one I've dropped a bit, and I mean this one was I said 8 to 7. It was probably a 9 when I first played it. It's such a cool concept. You have your smartphone, which is your ship is on there, and you're moving around the board, and you can even shoot from your phone to someone else's phone when there's a fight. It's really cool. The technology, unfortunately, is a problem in that you all need to be on the same internet. It uses up your phone battery pretty fast, and there's a bit of a downtime issue. I still like the game. I really do, but I have a hard time getting anybody to play it with me. 10 to Kill. This is a quick social deduction game. A bunch of animals at a party. Someone's an assassin. Who is that assassin? And Warhammer Quest adventure card game. Now, they remade this one recently, but I love this concept. Unfortunately, this came out, and then instantly right after it, Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight split ways, so there was never an expansion for it, and it kind of needed an expansion, but it's a nice little card adventure game. All right, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I reviewed S. Jorge Trophy. Now, the designer of this, Gil D'Ori, and the company Mesa, we've gone on to really work together. I like Viral and things like that. This, I hate it. It was a game made for a museum, and you're running around, but it's like a bad roll and move game. It's really a terrible game. Zombie State. Oh, man. This is a game of trying to be Axis and Allies with zombies, but had so many restrictions on it, and it looks really terrible, just a bad game in general, and I might have even been too kind to it 10 years ago. Gremlins Gizmo's Great Escape. Gremlins is a fun movie. This, I remember, came in the mail, and it was like some miniatures. I thought, oh, is it a good game? It is not. Paper matte. Just, it feels like the rules were thrown together at the last minute. Haggoth, Builder of Ships. From Mayday Games, this one's just a boring game. Pirate vs. Pirate. This is the sequel to Ninja vs. Ninja. Ninja vs. Ninja was not bad. It was a nice little back and forth game. Pirate vs. Pirate was just kind of a very lucky, light, maybe kids only game. 2x2, a game where there's multiple arcs trying to get multiple animals to get on them before the flood comes. It doesn't make any sense thematically, and it's a little boring looking. Caravelis, this is also from Mesa Games. This one I thought was okay, and they made a sequel to it. I don't believe I ever played the sequel, where you're going around picking up goods, delivering them, again from based on Portugal. It's okay. I actually wonder if this might have dropped for me a bit if I played it now, as opposed to 10 years ago. It's a nice looking board. Terra Prime. This is one of the earlier games from Tasty Minstrel, and it had really bad quality. And the game is okay, but with really bad quality, I couldn't give it a 7 today like I did back then. Junkyard Races. This one I dropped because it's a Mario Kart style game, but there's so many of those now, and this one just isn't as good as the rest. It's okay. On the other hand, RRR, I moved up. RRR was actually reprinted as Brave Rats. Brave Rats, it's a fun back and forth two-player game, micro game essentially. Now this original name Triple R is kind of a weird one. Brave Rats worked a little better. Yomi. Now this is a pretty big drop. When this game came out, I just kept playing it and playing it and playing it. I loved it. This back and forth battle card game where you each have your own deck of cards. It's essentially a big rock, paper, scissors game. Really cool, and I really liked it. I still enjoy it. But in the 10 years since this game came out, there's about 4 or 5 other games that do very similar things, and those have moved up for me. That's the only reason this one's come down. Then we have Reverse Charades. Really entertaining game. You got to get into it, where a group of people are doing charades for one person to watch. It's funny. Puzzle Strike. This one, when it came out, was one of the first deck building games to come out after Dominion, but it used poker chips, and everyone said poker chips are where it's at. All deck building games will have poker chips in them now. They do not. The poker chip idea is okay. It lets you throw a chip in the bag, which kind of lets you insert a card in the middle of your deck per se, and do a few other things. There is some controversy around this one. It's fine. It's a good game. I just didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else did. I liked it. Dust Tactics, nice little miniature game. I really enjoy it. I don't get into miniatures game, but the models for this one are fantastic. And Expedition Sumatra. This is essentially a roll and write style game, except it uses a board and you're going around trying to get pictures of animals. This is like a charming game that I don't think enough people heard about at all, but I found it to be really fun. Whew, that's a lot of games from 1, 5, and 10 years ago. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Look Back on the Dice Tower.